The Hidden City Beneath the Ash. Once upon a time, in the sunny land of Italy, there lay a bustling city called Pompeii. Its streets were filled with the sounds of laughter, chatter, and the clatter of horse-drawn carriages. The people of Pompeii were happy and content, living their lives under the watchful gaze of the majestic Mount Vesuvius. In a cozy little house near the city's grand forum lived a young boy named Marcus. Marcus was curious and adventurous, always eager to explore the nooks and crannies of his beloved city. His best friend, Livia, often joined him on his adventures. Livia was just as curious as Marcus and loved to discover new things. One bright morning, Marcus and Livia set off to explore the outskirts of Pompeii. They wandered through fields and meadows, chasing butterflies and laughing as they ran. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, they reached a hill that offered a splendid view of Mount Vesuvius. "Look at the mountain, Marcus," Livia exclaimed, her eyes wide with wonder. "It looks so powerful and grand." "It does," Marcus agreed, "but my father says we should always be careful. The mountain is a sleeping giant, and one day it might wake up." Just as Marcus finished speaking, the ground beneath their feet trembled slightly. Livia gasped and clutched Marcus's arm. "Did you feel that?" "Yes," Marcus said, his voice tinged with excitement and a little fear. "Maybe it's the giant stirring in its sleep." The children decided to head back to the city, their hearts racing with the thrill of the tiny tremor. They had no idea that this was just the beginning of a great adventure that would change their lives forever. Days turned into weeks, and life in Pompeii continued as usual. The streets were lively, the markets bustling, and the people cheerful. But then, one fateful day, everything changed. It was a hot summer afternoon when the sky above Pompeii darkened ominously. Thick clouds of smoke billowed from the top of Mount Vesuvius, and the air was filled with a strange, sulfurous smell. Marcus and Livia were in the forum, watching a performance by a group of traveling actors, when the first rumble shook the ground. People screamed and ran in all directions, trying to find shelter. Marcus grabbed Livia's hand and pulled her towards their home. "We need to find our families," he shouted over the chaos. As they ran through the streets, the sky grew darker and darker. Ash began to fall like snow, coating everything in a thick, gray blanket. The ground shook violently, and buildings began to crumble. "We have to keep moving," Marcus urged, his voice shaking with fear. "We need to find our parents." They finally reached Marcus's house, but it was empty. His family had already fled. They ran to Livia's house, but it too was deserted. The children realized that they needed to escape the city if they wanted to survive. "Let's head to the sea," Livia suggested. "Maybe we can find a boat to take us away from here." Marcus nodded, and they ran towards the harbor, dodging falling debris and trying to stay ahead of the thickening ash. The once familiar streets of Pompeii had become a maze of destruction, but the children pressed on, determined to find safety. As they neared the harbor, they heard the desperate cries of people trying to board the few boats that were still there. The sea was churning with waves, and the sky was an eerie shade of red. "There's a boat over there?" Marcus pointed to a small vessel that seemed to have room for a few more passengers. They sprinted towards it, their lungs burning from the effort and the thick, choking air. Just as they reached the boat, a loud explosion echoed through the air. They turned to see a massive plume of fire and smoke erupting from the top of Mount Vesuvius. The ground shook violently, and the boat rocked precariously in the water. "Hurry, get in!" a kind fisherman called out, extending his hand to help them aboard. Marcus and Livia scrambled onto the boat, grateful for the strangers' help. As the boat pulled away from the shore, they watched in horror as the city of Pompeii was swallowed by the ash and smoke. Tears streamed down their faces as they clung to each other, their hearts heavy with the loss of their home. Hours later, as the boat sailed away from the destruction, Marcus and Livia looked back one last time. Pompeii was gone, buried beneath a thick layer of ash. But the children knew that their adventure was not over. They had survived, and they would find a new place to call home. And so the hidden city of Pompeii lay beneath the ash, waiting for the day when it would be discovered once more and its story told to the world. Many years passed, and the city of Pompeii was forgotten, buried deep beneath layers of ash and time. The once bustling streets were silent, and the laughter of children like Marcus and Livia was no more. But the hidden city lay in wait, its secrets preserved until the day when it would be discovered once again. Far away, in a small village in Italy, a young boy named Enzo was playing in a field. Enzo was a curious child, always eager to explore and discover new things. His father, Giovanni, was a farmer, and Enzo often helped him in the fields. One sunny afternoon, as Enzo was digging in the ground, he uncovered something unusual. "Papa, come look at this," Enzo called out, his eyes wide with excitement. Giovanni hurried over and knelt beside his son. Together, they brushed away the dirt to reveal an ancient pottery shard. The intricate design on the shard was unlike anything they had ever seen before. "This is no ordinary piece of pottery," Giovanni said thoughtfully. "It looks very old. We should take it to the scholars in Naples. They might know what it is." The next day, Enzo and Giovanni traveled to Naples, carrying the pottery shard carefully wrapped in cloth. They visited the renowned Professor Julia, an expert in ancient artifacts. When Professor Julia saw the shard, her eyes lit up with excitement. "This is remarkable," she exclaimed. "It appears to be from an ancient city buried by the eruption of Mount Vesuvius. Could it be Pompeii?" Enzo and Giovanni listened in awe as Professor Julia explained the history of Pompeii, a city lost to the world for nearly 2,000 years. Intrigued by the possibility of uncovering more artifacts, she organized an excavation team to explore the area where the shard had been found. Days turned into weeks as the excavation progressed. Enzo and Giovanni watched in amazement as archaeologists unearthed streets, buildings, and even homes that had been perfectly preserved under the ash. It was as if the city had been frozen in time. One day, as Enzo was exploring the excavation site, he stumbled upon a small doorway that led to an underground chamber. He called for Professor Julia and the other archaeologists to join him. They carefully entered the chamber, their lanterns casting flickering shadows on the walls. "This must have been a secret room," Professor Julia said, her voice echoing softly. "Look at these paintings. They tell the story of the people who lived here." Enzo gazed in wonder at the vibrant frescoes that adorned the walls. The paintings depicted scenes of daily life in Pompeii, people shopping in the market, children playing in the streets, and families gathered for meals. It was a glimpse into a world long gone. As they explored further, Enzo noticed a small, weathered book lying on a stone shelf. He picked it up carefully and opened it. The pages were fragile, but the writing was still legible. It was a diary, written by a young boy named Marcus. "Professor Julia, look at this," Enzo said excitedly. "It's a diary from someone who lived here." Professor Julia took the diary and began to read aloud. The diary told the story of Marcus and Livia, their adventures, and their escape from the eruption of Mount Vesuvius. Enzo listened intently, feeling a connection to the boy who had lived so long ago. As they read the diary, they discovered that Marcus and Livia had survived the disaster and had started a new life in a distant land. Their courage and determination had allowed them to overcome the tragedy and build a future. The discovery of Marcus's diary brought the story of Pompeii to life in a way that no one had ever imagined. The world learned about the vibrant city, the people who lived there, and the catastrophic event that had buried it for centuries. The excavation continued, and Pompeii gradually revealed its secrets. Enzo and Giovanni were hailed as heroes for their role in uncovering the hidden city. Enzo's curiosity and love of exploration had led to one of the greatest discoveries in history. And so the story of Pompeii was told once more, a tale of wonder and tragedy preserved for future generations. The hidden city beneath the ash had been found, and its legacy would live on forever. The end.